Have you ever wondered about the abundant amount of references to gods in Wano alone? First we have Kaido the dragon meaning god in the One Piece world, and Oda even stated that dragons are the closest things to gods, a common eastern belief, as well as the people of Wano who refer to him as a deity, most likely for the reason that he is a giant powerful dragon. And next we have sun god Nika, who was first introduced by Who's Who during Wano, a legendary figure known for freeing slaves. If you want to know more about Nika, I would recommend checking out the Wizard of Oars, as he explains and breaks down how Nika can mean the smiling one, the conqueror, or victory of Jesus, and many more things as well. He believes that Oars is the sun god as well as Joyboy, and they're all the same. He explains how Joyboy and the sun god were based off Jesus and the Bible as a whole. But with this focus on the sun god Nika and Kaido the dragon deity of Wano, there is one deity of Wano that has flown under the radar, forgotten by many people. And no, it's not the Lunarians. It is none other than the white boar, also known as the mountain god. When we are first introduced to these boars, they are more importantly referred to as the agents of God. The reason the white boar of Wano has been forgotten is because it shows up during the first chapters of the Odin flashback and then never returns once defeated by Odin, and that was after only a few chapters. But what if I told you that this boar was actually a reference to Joyboy or Oars? Now this is essentially my part 2 to the Oars Is Joyboy theory. I highly recommend, like I said, go check out the Wizard of Oars. His entire channel has multiple videos explaining this theory. So without further ado, let's get into the video. First, let's start off with two things that on the surface may seem like mere coincidence. So take this how you want, but we might as well get it out the way. When you first look at the boar and this little baby boar that Oda draws, what is the defining features? The tusks are a distinct feature of a boar, and notice how they are protruding from the sides of the lower lip. Now a character in One Piece that has this exact same feature is Oars. And with the speculation that Oars the First is from Wano, being the Onigashima head, we now have a reason as to why these may be the agents of the gods, because if Oars is Joyboy and they worship him as a god, these white boars may be directly connected to Oars. The people of Wano may have seen these boars and their tusks and thought, that kind of reminds me of Oars or Joyboy. Oars Jr. and his crew even wear the lower lips, and that proves this is a distinct feature that runs in the Oars bloodlines, something that is truly recognizable. And the second interesting coincidence is simply the name. Oars sounds very similar to Boars. The only difference is a B at the beginning, so is it possible that Oda intended these two characters to be very similar? Maybe the Oars tusk was a feature that Oda was inspired by directly from the boar animal. Boars are an animal that are known for fighting, and they never give up until they die, up to the last breath. A boar will go down with his pride. Mothers are known to be overly aggressive and protective, and this is what we saw in Wano. I guess the real question here is, where is the father boar? Boars are known for being fearful, for never running from a fight, and this is why in some cases boars have become the representation of bravery in ancient cultures. Boars are also an animal that have very poor vision, but they make up for it by having insane senses, so you basically have a bunch of Fujitora running around Wano. They can sense the movement around them and they can hear for miles. Boars and pigs are surprisingly some of the most smartest in the entire world. Now imagine if Fujitora is actually from Wano. Maybe he learned his observation haki from a boar, similar to how Toph learned how to earthbend from the badger moles in The Last Airbender. So is it possible that these boars in Wano have some form of observation haki? Probably not, but just something to think about since they are considered godlike characters. Next, let's move on to what the boar may represent and symbolize in Wano. The white boar has connections to royalty, gods, and kings, and I think they may play a part in the story of One Piece, which involves Luffy, who wanted to be the king of the pirate, and Wano, which is a battle of conquerors or kings. The white boar is a symbol to the King Richard III, who was once the Duke of Gloucester, and in other countries and cultures the boar has many interesting representations. Being the symbol of bravery, the boars are also known for a fighting spirit that never goes down. That sounds an awful lot like Luffy if you ask me. Stubbornness, power, and fearless. These are the traits of a boar that many cultures adapt and symbolize through the animal. In the past, Anglo-Saxons and Norse leaders were known for having boars as their symbols for these very reasons. The boar can also be a representation of loyalty to the king, as well as being battle ready. And when you hear about the boars being the ancients of the gods, this makes perfect sense. In the Anglo-Saxon poem Beowulf, boar helmets are referenced up to 5 different times. Beowulf also represents the boar as the symbol that he is a leader and he doesn't give up or give in. These helmets have a Viking inspiration and we all know how much Oda loves Vikings. Maybe this boar god from One Piece is from Elbaf, and after all, Usopp's brave warrior of the sea mentality seems to have many of these boar traits. If you look at the ancient Celtics, they regarded boars as sacred divine animals. In Celtic mythology, the boar represented the moon. Similarly in Wano, we have a very heavy moon theme with the Kozuki clan in a full moon during a fire festival. But in almost every version of mythology, the boar represents the cycle of life and death, and many times the mother can represent fertility. Other times, boars in Celtic mythology have connections to the underworld. Overall though, this life and death theme makes boars a representation of Earth as a whole, creation and destruction. If what the Oars Is Joyboy theory speculates is true about the creation of Wano and maybe the entire new world, this will fit perfectly as well. There are many tales of kings and gods who transformed into boars. There is this one Celtic story about a king who became a boar, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. I could barely pronounce One Piece characters right. I'll put it on the screen for you. An evil boar who was cursed by a deity into a boar. The story is about him fighting against King Arthur, and eventually he fell off a cliff into a sea to never be found again. Other Celtic references are the boar being spiritually powerful and was sometimes a sacrificial animal, most likely a sacrifice to the gods. In Nordic mythology, there is a story of Freya, where a boar is sacrificed to Freya, and some believe that in Nordic mythology, the boar sacrifice represented the sun and the rebirth of the sun, and this is due to the sacrifice being during the middle of winter, most likely during Christmas, if you consider the sun god and the resurrection, which could be Luffy or the new Joy Boy. And if you've ever played God of War, you might remember the boars that were there when you first seen Freya. In Nordic cultures, during Yule's Eve, great vows are taken and the boar is used as a symbol to worship the kings and the gods. Yule is a Nordic celebration where they would sometimes make sacrifices to the pagan gods. The Wizard of War's channel goes into the pagan gods and how Christmas is actually a pagan worship of the pagan sun god holiday. Go check him out over there for more information on all of that. But Yule was also a Viking tradition as it came from the Nordic pagan religions, and once again, we know about Oda's obsession with the Vikings. In the Philippines, eating a boar meant revival or replenishing your life. In Indian religions and mythology, the boar is also important as a symbol as well. The boar is the savior and the symbol of fertility and life. There's also a story of Brahmin Vishnu, a giant boar who saved the world from destruction. And there's also another story of a demon, Hiranyakasa, who was known as the enemy of the gods. This demon pushed the earth under into the ocean until the giant boar named Varaha, who killed the demon, then lifted the earth out of the ocean with his tusk to save the world. So with all of this, it's up to you to decide what is the significance of the boar in One Piece. What if the boar and the sun god Nika are connected? After all, there is a connection as the symbol of sacrifice and rebirth, and with Yule including the boar as a symbol of worship, it seems likely that this whole Jesus connection could actually be true. Wizard of Wars has also explained how the sun gods and the son of God Jesus aren't one and the same when it comes to One Piece and Oda's interpretation. How does this focus and relate to Oars? Oars is a character who, if he is the sun god, at the very least has many similarities to the boar. His name sounds similar and the tusk can resemble the oar's teeth that stick out of his mouth. If you want to take a step even further, you could say that Kaido, who is a god in Wano, may be connected to Oars as well. Being an Oni, he may resemble Oars or possibly even be a long lost descendant of Oars. After all, the people in Wano are aware of Onis. They have it in the fire festival, and Hitetsu even called Luffy an ogre when he first met him. The people of Wano worship Kaido most likely because he is the dragon god. And is it a coincidence that Ace was making the Straw Hats at Amigasa for a giant ogre, Oars Jr.? It could be another coincidence, but it does seem like these coincidences just continue to stack up more and more throughout the story. And since that is the land where they created the Straw Hats, who is the man that Hitetsu is waiting for? Is he waiting for Joy Boy? Is he waiting for Oars Jr.? Is he waiting for Luffy specifically, who has the Straw Hat? You never know. Maybe he's waiting for Usopp since they both have the long nose. All I do know is that when someone has a long nose in One Piece, they're usually telling a lie. I mean, look at Usopp, then you have Kaku. There seems to be a trend going in that direction, and I don't think you could trust everything Hitetsu has to say. He resembles a Skypian with his wings. There's a lot of shady stuff going on there, and he's also a blacksmith of Wano. So, you know, there's a lot going on, and you might say this boar was mentioned once and never mentioned again after Oden defeated it. Like I said, where is the father? The father is going to be huge, right? We have this mother boar, but if the father is there somewhere roaming through the mountains, that is something that Tama could definitely control with her fruit in the future. And we also have to think about it like this. All these huge animals are connected connected to Joyboy in some way. We have the Sea Kings, Zoe and Zunisha, and now we have this Boar, which is part of Wano, a god of Wano. I'm going to have to say that that is as well. And then depending on what we get with Elbaf, if Elbaf is somehow connected to the Void Century, Joyboy, the Ancient Kingdom as well. When Professor Clover is talking about the Ancient Kingdom, he calls it an enormous kingdom. Does he mean enormous as in literally enormous in the scope, in the size of the country, or does he mean enormous as in we had these giant like creatures, giant races roaming throughout the entire kingdom? If Oars is Joyboy and he was the ruler of the Ancient Kingdom, that also makes sense to why it was literally an enormous kingdom. And really think about it, if we have this giant straw hat, and then what is the pet going to be, man? You can't have a little chopper running around, he'll crush it. So maybe the pet of Joyboy or Oars or whoever it was these boars and these elephants and these sea kings, the agents of the gods, who are fierce, ferocious creatures who never go down, never back up from a fight. It makes sense to why they were connected to Joyboy. If you look at Luffy, Luffy is a character who never goes down. He's the reincarnation of Joyboy, as many speculate. So anyways guys, what do you think about my theory? Do the boars have any significance in Wano and to One Piece? I mean, they were called gods, but are they just a forgotten character that will never have an impact on the future of the story or even in the past in the Void Century? Don't forget to hit the like button, don't forget to subscribe, and have a great day.